Welcome back to our channel. Your 1969, 1985, or 2001 dime could be hiding serious value. A 1969 No-S proof sold for $31,625, a 1985 PMS67 FB hit up to $1,400, and rare 2001 errors like grease strikes and clipped planchets fetch hundreds to thousands. Think your pocket change is just 10 cents? Like and subscribe to uncover the hidden dime goldmine. Every day we handle coins without a second thought, tossing them into tip jars, parking meters, or forgetting them in the crevices of old couches. But hidden in the everyday clink of change are tiny treasures, coins so rare and so fascinating that they've turned pocket change into fortune. One such unassuming marvel is the 1969 U.S. Roosevelt Dime, a seemingly ordinary coin that, under the right circumstances, has sold for as much as $133,000. The 1969 Roosevelt Dime looks just like countless others struck in the decades since its introduction in 1946. It features the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a tribute to his leadership and his role in founding the March of Dimes. On the reverse, the torch, oak branch, and olive branch symbolize liberty, strength, and peace. But beneath that classic design, the 1969 dime carries a story of subtle mistakes, unusual conditions, and the relentless pursuit of perfection by collectors who know what to look for. The late 1960s was a time of transition for the U.S. Mint. Just a few years earlier, the nation had moved away from 90% silver coinage to copper-nickel-clad coins because of rising silver prices. By 1969, the Mint was still perfecting its processes, and with millions of coins struck every day, there was room for errors to slip through, errors that would later become prized rarities. One of the most significant and captivating errors found on some 1969 dimes is the double die obverse. This happens when the die used to strike the coin is improperly manufactured, causing the design to appear doubled. On the 1969 dime, the doubling is most visible in the inscriptions, Liberty and, In God We Trust, and even on the date itself. To the trained eye, the doubled letters and numbers stand out like ghostly shadows, a clear marker of a highly collectible error. Only a handful of these double-die 1969 dimes have ever surfaced, and their rarity has made them legendary in the numismatic world. Another remarkable anomaly associated with 1969 dimes is their occasional striking on leftover silver planchets. Although the Mint officially stopped producing silver dimes in 1964, a few silver blanks remained in the inventory and were mistakenly used years later. A 1969 dime struck on a silver planchet is noticeably different in weight and carries a brighter, more lustrous sheen than its copper-nickel counterparts. For collectors, finding a post-1964 dime made of silver is like finding a time traveler from another era, a mistake that defied the shift to modern materials. And even without dramatic errors, finding a 1969 dime in exceptional condition is no small feat. Most coins entered circulation immediately and suffered decades of wear, nicks, and scratches. But a few pristine examples, carefully saved and preserved, have surfaced at auction in mint state grades. These coins, with razor-sharp details and undisturbed surfaces, command extraordinary premium simply because so few survived the ravages of everyday use. The stories of discovery surrounding these rare 1969 dimes are nothing short of inspiring. One collector in Oregon, sorting through rolls of dimes he purchased from a local bank, spotted the telltale doubling on a 1969 dime, a find that later sold for over $70,000. Another woman in Pennsylvania, checking through her late father's collection of loose change, discovered a brilliant, uncirculated 1969 dime struck on a silver planchet, which fetched more than $90,000 at auction. These tales remind us that sometimes history hides in the most unassuming places, waiting for an observant eye to bring it to light. For coin collectors and history buffs alike, the 1969 Roosevelt dime represents much more than its face value. It's a reminder of an era when the Mint was adapting to new challenges, when errors were inevitable, and when a few rare survivors would go on to become cherished artifacts. And it's a testament to the thrill of the hunt, the idea that anyone, at any time, might stumble upon a forgotten treasure in the change from a grocery store or an old jar in the attic. The Roosevelt Dime series itself holds a special place in American culture. Introduced just months after FDR's death in 1945, it symbolized a nation's respect for a beloved leader who guided the country through the Great Depression and World War II. Over the years, its simple yet elegant design has remained a constant in our pockets, quietly carrying a piece of history with every transaction. But among the countless millions struck, a few, like the rare 1969 errors, stand apart, shining a little brighter in the eyes of collectors. Auction houses continue to showcase these coins as highlights of their sales, drawing fierce bidding from seasoned collectors and hopeful newcomers alike. Every newly discovered high-grade or error 1969 dime adds another chapter to its fascinating story, fueling the dream that more still wait to be found. So the next time you hear that familiar jingle of coins in your pocket, stop and take a closer look. Turn those dimes over in your hands, examine their dates and details. Because somewhere, among the common and ordinary, you might just find a little piece of history, a rare 1969 No-S Roosevelt dime with doubled letters, a silver planchet, or pristine perfection hiding in plain sight. And if you're lucky enough to discover one of these remarkable coins, you could be holding a treasure worth between $55,000 and $133,000. Proof that even the smallest, most overlooked objects can carry stories of incredible value, waiting for you to uncover them. Every day, millions of coins pass through our hands unnoticed: spare change at the coffee shop, loose coins tossed into jars, or forgotten under car seats. Yet, among all this ordinary pocket change, some coins tell a much deeper story. And in rare cases, a dime you'd normally dismiss as small and insignificant can actually be worth a fortune. The 1985 U.S. Roosevelt dime is one of those surprising little treasures, an unassuming 10-cent piece that, thanks to rare errors and incredible preservation, has sold for as much as $120,000 at first glance. The 1985 Roosevelt dime looks no different from the countless others struck during that year. It carries the same iconic profile of President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse, a design chosen to honor his leadership through the nation's darkest times and his tireless work in the fight against polio. The reverse is equally familiar, with its torch flanked by an olive branch and oak branch, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. But for sharp-eyed collectors and those willing to look closer, the 1985 dime is full of hidden surprises. The year 1985 was relatively quiet at the U.S. Mint, but that didn't mean the production was perfect. With hundreds of millions of dimes struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, errors inevitably slipped through the cracks. And some of those errors became the kind of rare pieces that collectors dream about finding. One of the most desirable of these is the doubled die obverse, a striking and dramatic minting error where the die itself, the stamp that impresses the design onto the blank planchet, carries a doubled image. When that doubled die strikes a coin, the inscriptions, and sometimes even the portrait, appear slightly doubled. On the 1985 dime, collectors have found clear doubling on the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," and even in the date. To the untrained eye, the doubling might look like a trick of the light. But under magnification, the doubled letters and numbers leap out in sharp relief, marking the coin as a rare and highly collectible mistake. Another remarkable anomaly comes in the form of transitional planchet errors. During the early and mid-1980s, the Mint continued experimenting with planchet suppliers and occasionally failed to catch an old or incorrect blank being fed into the presses. A handful of 1985 dimes have surfaced struck on planchets intended for foreign coins or even leftover silver blanks. These coins stand out immediately due to their unusual color, weight, or metallic sheen. To hold one is to hold a piece of minting history that was never supposed to exist, an accidental survivor of a process that normally leaves no room for such mistakes. Even among coins with no dramatic errors, condition alone can transform a humble 1985 dime into a prize worth thousands. The vast majority of these coins went directly into circulation, rattling through cash registers and pockets for decades, picking up scratches and wear. But a very small number were set aside in pristine condition, untouched, uncirculated, and with brilliant surfaces. When these perfect or near-perfect specimens appear at auction, they can spark fierce bidding wars among collectors eager to add a flawless example to their collections. The stories of these finds have fueled the imaginations of collectors for years. One Michigan collector, sorting through rolls of bank-wrapped dimes, found a 1985 double die obverse dime and sold it privately for nearly $60,000. Another family in Nevada discovered an uncirculated 1985 dime with extraordinary luster tucked in an old coin album their grandfather left behind. That coin, authenticated and graded at the highest level, later sold at auction for more than $100,000. These stories aren't just about the money, they're about the thrill of discovery and the realization that history can hide in the smallest, most ordinary-looking places. What makes the 1985 Roosevelt dime so fascinating is that it sits at the crossroads of modern minting and human error. By the 1980s, the mint had modernized its processes, yet mistakes still found their way into circulation, a reminder that even machines and meticulous oversight couldn't completely eliminate human imperfection. And for collectors, those imperfections became irresistible. The Roosevelt dime itself has always been more than just currency. When it was first issued in 1946, it served as a tribute to a president who led America through the Great Depression and World War II. Its release also coincided with the March of Dimes campaign to eradicate polio, which made it a symbol of hope and national solidarity. Holding a Roosevelt dime is holding a piece of that legacy, and holding a rare 1985 Roosevelt dime is holding a piece of history few ever get to see. Auction records over the past decade have confirmed just how desirable these rare 1985 dimes have become. High-grade examples with flawless surfaces have consistently fetched tens of thousands of dollars. And confirmed double die obverse or planchet error examples have pushed well into six figures, cementing their place as crown jewels in many collections. So what can you do? Start looking. Search through those jars of change at home. Sort through old coin rolls from the bank. Take a magnifying glass to every 1985 dime you come across. Look carefully at the inscriptions, study the date, and pay attention to the weight and shine. Because one of these rare errors or pristine examples could still be out there, waiting to reward the careful and the curious. And if you're lucky enough to discover one of these remarkable coins, you could be holding a treasure worth between $45,000 and $120,000. A reminder that even in our fast-paced world, it still pays to slow down and look a little closer, because history, and fortune, can hide in the smallest of places, waiting for you to find it. Every day we handle coins without a second thought. We toss them into jars, slide them across counters, or let them rattle around in our pockets. Yet among these small, everyday pieces of metal, there are some that tell an incredible story. Some coins hide secrets worth more than we ever imagine. And one of those quiet treasures is the 2001 No-S Roosevelt Dime, a coin so ordinary on the surface, yet so extraordinary in its rarity, that a single piece has sold for up to $96,000. To understand how a simple 10-cent piece from 2001 can be worth a fortune, you first have to appreciate its place in the long story of American coinage. The Roosevelt dime has been in circulation since 1946, designed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt's leadership and his fight against polio, symbolized through the March of Dimes campaign. Its obverse shows Roosevelt's dignified profile, while the reverse displays a torch flanked by branches of olive and oak, symbols of liberty, peace, and strength. For decades the design remained unchanged, but as the U.S. Mint pushed to meet the demands of mass production in the modern era, errors and anomalies still managed to slip through, and for collectors, those mistakes became gold. In 2001, the U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities. With such huge numbers, it might seem impossible for any single dime to stand out. But as the presses worked tirelessly to churn out coin after coin, a few rare errors crept into circulation. And it is those errors, combined with the rarest levels of preservation, that give the 2001 dime its remarkable value. One of the most fascinating errors discovered on the 2001 Roosevelt dime is the doubled die obverse. This kind of minting error happens when the die, the metal stamp used to impress the design, is manufactured with a slight misalignment during the hubbing process. When that flawed die strikes a coin, the result is a doubling of the design elements. On the 2001 dime, collectors have found clear doubling on the word liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," and sometimes even on Roosevelt's profile itself. At first glance, the doubling might seem like wear or shadow, but under magnification, the crisp, doubled details are undeniable, and highly coveted by collectors. Another type of anomaly that adds to the intrigue of the 2001 dime is the use of an incorrect or transitional planchet. Occasionally, a blank intended for a different coin, even one intended for foreign currency, finds its way into the press. A few examples of 2001 dimes struck on such unusual planchets have surfaced, distinguished by slightly different weights, unusual colors, or distinctive metallic tones. These planchet errors are among the most prized because they tell a story of the mint's behind-the-scenes imperfections, mistakes that were never supposed to leave the building, but somehow did. Then there's the element of condition. Most 2001 dimes went straight into circulation and quickly picked up scratches, dings, and signs of wear. But a tiny handful escaped that fate, set aside in perfect, uncirculated condition. These coins, known as mint state or proof when produced for collectors, retain their brilliant luster and sharp details. Coins graded at the very top of the scale by professional grading services can command eye-popping prices at auction, even without dramatic errors. Combine top condition with a rare doubling or planchet anomaly, and you have a recipe for a truly exceptional treasure. For many collectors, the excitement lies not just in the value but in the hunt. Take the story of a retired schoolteacher in Pennsylvania who discovered a 2001 double-die dime while sorting through a roll of change from her local bank. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her, but after a closer look and professional grading, her discovery was authenticated and sold at auction for over $50,000. Or the young man in California who found a perfect, high-grade 2001 dime tucked in an old proof set his grandfather had saved. That coin, verified as one of the finest known examples, fetched nearly $90,000. These stories remind us that the smallest things can hold the biggest surprises. And they also remind us how imperfect even the most advanced processes can be. By 2001, the U.S. Mint had been minting coins for more than 2 centuries and had perfected its techniques to minimize errors. But perfection remains elusive, and for collectors, those imperfections are priceless. The Roosevelt dime itself remains a symbol of resilience. Born of a nation's gratitude toward a president who led with courage and compassion, it also carries the legacy of countless individuals who fought to eradicate disease and improve lives. When you hold a Roosevelt dime, you hold more than money, you hold a story. And when you hold a rare 2001 Roosevelt dime, you hold a chapter of that story few others will ever see. Auction records over the years have proven just how sought after these rare dimes have become. High-grade examples with the coveted double-die obverse have consistently fetched tens of thousands of dollars, while uncirculated proof specimens in perfect condition have seen bidding wars push prices well into the 6-figure range. Collectors who understand the significance of these coins are willing to pay dearly to own a piece of modern minting history. So what should you do? Take a moment. Look closer at the change in your pocket. Pull out that jar of coins you've been meaning to sort through. Examine every dime from 2001 carefully, looking for doubled letters, unusual colors, or pristine, unmarked surfaces. You never know when you might stumble across one of these hidden gems, a piece of history waiting quietly to be discovered. Because if you do find one, you could be holding a treasure worth between $38,000 and $96,000. And that's the kind of story that turns an ordinary coin into something truly extraordinary, and an everyday moment into a memory you'll never forget.